Imagine a young Prince Louis arriving at a royal gathering, carrying something that means far more emotionally than financially a small keepsake connected to the grandmother he never had the chance to meet, Princess Diana. Now imagine that innocent gesture unexpectedly becoming the center of a tense family disagreement. A dramatic account claims exactly that happened, eventually drawing Princess Anne, Prince William, King Charles, and Queen Camilla into the same controversy. But did a simple family memento really cause such an extraordinary confrontation? Stay with us as we separate the emotional heart of this story from the claims that remain unverified. Prince Louis has grown up under circumstances very different from those experienced by earlier generations of royal children. William and Catherine have generally tried to balance occasional public appearances with an upbringing that gives George, Charlotte, and Louis room to simply be children. That approach carries particular meaning for William, whose own childhood unfolded under relentless public attention. Diana's death also remains an important part of his personal history. The story builds upon that reality by suggesting William has deliberately kept his mother's memory alive privately for his children through photographs, conversations, and meaningful family possessions. According to the account, one such possession was a modest silver pin supposedly associated with Diana. William allegedly gave it to Louis before a formal family gathering, not because of its monetary value, but because of what it represented. The supplied story offers no authenticated provenance or palace confirmation establishing this particular handover, so that detail should be treated cautiously. Still, the idea carries obvious emotional weight. For a child who never met his grandmother, an ordinary object belonging to her could become something tangible, a small connection between generations that photographs and stories alone cannot completely reproduce. The narrative claims Louis carried the pin carefully inside his blazer while senior family members gathered before an official function. Everything supposedly remained routine until Camilla noticed it. According to the story, she questioned whether the keepsake was appropriate for the occasion and allegedly invoked formal dress expectations. There is no reliable evidence supplied confirming that this exchange occurred. More importantly, the account later claims no relevant written dress rule actually prohibited the item. Without authenticated documents, neither allegation can be established. Yet this is where the story's central tension begins. Should formal royal expectations ever override something deeply personal to a child? The most emotional allegation follows. Louis supposedly tried to explain that the object had belonged to Diana and that his father had entrusted it to him. The account claims he became distressed when he believed it might be removed and eventually left the room crying. Again, these are descriptions of a private moment involving a child, supported in the supplied narrative only through unnamed accounts. They should not be repeated as established fact. But the scenario raises a broader point many parents would recognize. Adults can interpret an object as insignificant, while a child sees it as irreplaceable because of the person and memory attached to it. Princess Anne then becomes the central figure in the story. The narrative claims she encountered an upset Louis in a corridor, listened to his explanation, and immediately returned to confront Camilla. It even attributes forceful private remarks to Anne, but there is no independent confirmation that she said them. What makes the scenario compelling is Anne's established public reputation for directness and duty. The story uses that reputation to imagine her prioritizing a child's feelings over ceremonial formality. Whether the confrontation happened as described remains uncertain, but the underlying principle is straightforward. Children should not become casualties of disagreements between adults. If you're enjoying this royal family discussion, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because there is another important layer to this story. The account claims somebody later examined the dress instructions for the event and discovered there was no explicit regulation preventing Louis from carrying or wearing a personal family keepsake. That would dramatically change the interpretation of the confrontation, but the supplied material does not provide an authenticated copy of this alleged document. Therefore, we cannot responsibly conclude that anyone invented a rule. What we can say is that extraordinary accusations require stronger evidence than anonymous recollections. The narrative next brings Prince William into the dispute. After supposedly learning that Louis had become upset, William is portrayed as making his parental boundaries unmistakably clear. Decisions concerning his children's personal possessions and their relationship with Diana's memory, the story says, belong to him and Catherine. The exact words attributed to William are unverified, but the underlying sentiment fits a larger theme surrounding the Wales family. Royal children may have public responsibilities, yet they remain children first. William's experiences growing up make questions about protecting his own children from institutional pressure particularly resonant with audiences. King Charles is then given perhaps the most emotionally dramatic role. According to the account, he supposedly sought Louis out personally, reassured him that remembering Diana was nothing to hide, and supported his keeping the pin. It is a touching scene, but there is no reliable public confirmation that this private interaction occurred. We should therefore treat it as part of the narrative rather than documented history. Nevertheless, the scene represents something meaningful symbolically. 3 generations of one family attempting to reconcile royal tradition with a more emotionally open approach to childhood, grief, and remembrance. The story becomes even more sensational by claiming Camilla was subsequently removed from the day's engagement following the disagreement. That is an extraordinary assertion and cannot be treated as confirmed without reliable evidence. Changes to a royal schedule can happen for numerous reasons, and absence alone does not prove punishment or a family confrontation. This distinction matters because compelling storytelling can easily transform coincidence into causation. If Camilla did not attend an event, that does not establish why. A responsible account must separate what can be observed publicly from what anonymous sources claim happened privately behind palace doors. According to the narrative, Louis eventually attended the function with the keepsake still on his clothing, turning the tiny silver object into a symbol of family memory. The story further claims photographers unknowingly captured it before anyone understood its alleged significance. Without verified provenance for the pin or confirmation of the surrounding confrontation, photographs alone could not prove the larger story. Still, the image the narrative creates is powerful. A young boy walking into a formal royal environment, carrying a connection to a grandmother he knows only through family memories, while his parents allow that connection to remain personal rather than purely ceremonial. That emotional symbolism explains why stories involving Diana continue to generate such enormous interest. She died long before George, Charlotte, and Louis were born. Yet her relationship to William means her memory inevitably remains part of their family history. William has publicly spoken in the past about keeping his mother's memory alive for his children, which makes the broader theme plausible even when the specific pin story remains unverified. The important distinction is between that established family connection and dramatic claims about private confrontations. One can discuss Diana's continuing significance without presenting every palace rumor surrounding her grandchildren as confirmed reality. The story also casts Princess Anne as a protective figure who supposedly places family above hierarchy. Whether or not this particular confrontation occurred, that characterization helps explain why the narrative resonates with royal audiences. Anne has spent decades carrying out public duties while maintaining a reputation for practicality rather than theatricality. The account transforms those qualities into a dramatic image, a senior royal refusing to allow protocol to overwhelm an 8-year-old's emotions. But admiration for Anne should not become evidence for events we cannot verify. A believable personality can make a story compelling without automatically making every alleged conversation true. At its heart, then, this isn't really a story about the monetary value of a silver pin. It is about memory, childhood, and the difficult relationship between family life and royal institution. William's generation has often been discussed as approaching parenting differently from previous royal eras, particularly when it comes to giving children greater emotional space. If a meaningful possession helps a child feel connected to a relative they never met, many families would understand why that matters. But precisely because Prince Louis is still a child, speculation about his private emotions deserves additional care rather than increasingly dramatic assumptions. So did Princess Anne really confront Camilla over a Diana keepsake belonging to Prince Louis? Based on the material available here, the dramatic private confrontation, alleged dress code dispute, and supposed consequences for Camilla remain unverified claims, not established palace facts. What makes the story compelling is the question underneath it. When royal tradition and a child's personal connection to family history appear to collide, which should come first? Tell us what you think in the comments. If you enjoy carefully framed royal family stories and discussions, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for the next update.